Hello, everyone. Hi, Mike. Hello, Claudia. Good to see everybody. Okay. Mike, if you'll offer the mandala for us, please make the mudra.
Dashi Puki Jukshin Metak Drum Rira Bling Shin Inde Genpadi Sange Shingdu Mikte Uwargi Jokun Namdak Shingla Chupashok Idam Guru Ratna Mandalakam Niryatayami.
I go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I achieve enlightenment. By the power of the goodness that I do in giving and the rest, may I reach Buddhahood for the sake of every living being. I go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I achieve enlightenment. By the power of the goodness that I do in giving and the rest, may I reach Buddhahood for the sake of every living being. I go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I achieve enlightenment. By the power of the goodness that I do in giving and the rest, may I reach Buddhahood for the sake of, I will reach Buddhahood for the sake of every living being. I'm just curious. When I come on screen, it's 10 a.m. on my computer, but my phone says it's like 10:04. What time is it for you on your computer when I come on screen? Is it 10 a.m.? Or is it on the hour? Or am I 4 or 5 minutes late? 10:01. Okay. Well, that explains it. I'm not sure what's going on with my computer, but okay. Let's see. I don't remember. Do we do rejoicing before class? Yes? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, let's start with Mike. Mike, what do you have to rejoice about today?
What do I have to rejoice about today? um, I'm going up to see some friends this weekend. So I can rejoice in the fact that I have friends to go see.
Okay. Now, how can you do that with wisdom? By treating others the way you want to be treated, allows you, permits with wisdom, generates the fact that you'll have people treat the way you want to be treated, which is probably the way one definition of a friend. Okay. Claudia, what can you rejoice in? Turn on your mic.
Let me think about. Well, yesterday I traveled to visit my mom, so my son can be near to her, and I too. So what I want in my life is to create an environment of where people join together and be together, actually. So I think so. That.
Yeah, so going to see your mother and doing that with the idea of getting your son connected with her is what sets your future karma for having meeting people and enjoying each other. Good. Katerina, what would you have to rejoice in? And microphone. I can barely hear you.
I connect my kids with his friend, and I make my diary and I make meditation.
Okay. You look a little stressed. I don't mean to make rejoicing supposed to be fun. So never feel stressed about it. Just think of something that happened to you and then remember where that came from. When we rejoice, it's really important to remember. If you just rejoice, that's fine. But if you rejoice with wisdom, that's what sets the seeds in the future for you. So that's what I'm trying to encourage people to do. Cornelia, besides rejoicing for your wonderful husband, what can you rejoice in? Microphone.
Sorry, I can rejoice that my husband is still there, take the kids and helps me to find free time to be here.
Good.
That's great. I rejoice.
Yeah, good for you. That's wonderful. Your husband will do that. But to have that happen in the future, you have to be able to help him when he needs it. And when you do that, you're helping him so that in the future you get to help you, etc. It sounds self-serving, but it really isn't, because you're applying your knowledge of karma and emptiness to the present, to the dirty good karma that's happening now. Okay, who else do we have? I don't see anybody else. Okay. Well, what do I get to rejoice in? Well, I had a friend review. I'm getting ready. I'm sending the book in probably this afternoon or tomorrow. And I had another friend review it. And it sounds self-serving to have friends review my book, but each one of the people I've had review it are very honest with me. And if they think things need to be changed, they don't hesitate to tell me. But this gentleman had another glowing review. So I think the book's going to meet with success. The other fun thing was one of my students works on the very vehicle, hit to kill vehicle that I'm writing this book about. And I sent him a photograph that he'd never seen before about a competitor's hit to kill vehicle. So he'd never seen it. So he was blown away by the fact that I could find it and I understood the various components of it. So that just made me feel good that I'd added to his knowledge. So that's my rejoicing. And by rejoicing in helping him, I'm setting the seeds to have similar things happen for me. For instance, I was looking in fact, this happened within minutes of my doing it. I was looking for an illustration for my book, and I could not find the right one. For days now, I've been looking, and this morning I found it. Now, some could argue that those two can't be connected. I disagree. I think they're absolutely connected. Now, what I've got to do is figure out how to see emptiness directly by helping others see emptiness directly. So that's my next task. Okay. I need to get my screen set up properly. There we go. Okay, so we're going to talk about going for refuge now. What it really means to go for refuge. So we go to refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. We should be doing that 6 times a day, 3 in the morning, 3 at night. So every day we have class, we've done the 3 in the morning. I don't know how many of you have seen the app on the phone, on your phone. I developed that about a year ago because I wanted to make it easy for people to keep their books. And so it's easy to go for refuge 3 times in the morning, 3 times during the day using the phone. If you haven't seen the app, it's for free. And I just ask people if they use the app to make a donation to Diamond Mountain. I don't get any money for it. That wasn't why I developed the app. Okay, so we go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. The pictures representing the Buddha are what we call the nominal Buddha jewel. They're not the main Buddha jewel. The main Buddha jewel that we're going for refuge in is the Dharmakaya, the emptiness of the Buddha. The Dharma we're going for refuge to isn't the books and the teaching. We use the books, we use the teachings, but the actual refuge when we go for the Dharma jewel is seeing emptiness directly. The 5 paths which lead to the direct perception of emptiness and down to the direct perception of emptiness and its resulting cessations. So it's not wrong to go to refuge when you go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, to think of an image, to think of the teaching, to think of the Sangha. But what we're really doing is going for refuge, as I said, in the Dharmakaya, the emptiness of the Buddha, the potential for us to become a Buddha, the books and teachings as the Dharma jewel, getting us to see emptiness. The nominal Sangha jewel is the ordained monks and nuns. I suggest that it's not only the monks and nuns, but as I've said before, it's this community I have. I have a reasonable number of students. I consider them to be all my Sangha. I'm learning from them. I'm teaching them. The real Sangha jewel are everyone that has seen emptiness directly. So I don't know who's seen emptiness directly. So I prefer, my preference is to think of things, is to put this into the context of my daily life. And since I'm not in a monastery, I'm not around ordained people all the time, but I'm around all my students. So they're my Sangha jewel. The real definition of refuge is this: that thought which of its own power puts all its hopes in another external object. So I'll say that again. That thought which of its own power puts all its hopes in another external object. When you go for protection to some object other than yourself, it's because you don't have the power to protect yourself. 2 elements must be present. There must be a fear and an element of belief. Now, when you talk about an element of fear, it's not like, oh my God, they're going to come get me. It's the fear of being ignorant on how for me, it's the fear of being ignorant how the world works, responding ignorantly to how I think the world works. My refuge is in the Dharma, is knowing that there's this thing called emptiness. There's this idea called karma. And if I understand and practice putting karma and emptiness into my daily life, I'll be protected. I'll be able to, I'll be protected from the kind of future rebirth that I don't want. So that's the refuge. That's how I'm taking refuge. And then my protection is by learning to react to the world with wisdom, I'm generating the future world that I want. It's the words of the refuge prayer doesn't protect you. You have to have the mental state and the efforts that go along with it. It's like I was saying, I think last class, or maybe it was during the death meditation. I was at a meeting once where I used to work, and several of the attendees to the meeting had been at a farmer's market and had gotten protection cords from some monks. And they were showing them to me. They didn't know I was a Buddhist. They were showing it to me and saying, see, I can't get hurt anymore. Nothing can happen to me. I've got this protection cord. And I said, well, it's my understanding from Buddhism that protection cord isn't protecting you from being hit by a car. It's supposed to remind you of what the true protection is. They kind of looked at me like I was nuts. But when I look at the protection cord, I wear a bracelet that I got as part of my tantric initiation. I look at that. I've worn that. That's been on me since, let's see, when did I? Like 2009. I've worn this nearly continually. The only time I've taken it off is if going through the airport scanners, they asked me to take it off, even though it's silver. But every time I see that, every time I see it, it reminds me of my refuge commitments, my tantric vows, all of my vows. That's the protection. So if the three jewels are always there, but you have to go to them to get refuge. You could be standing in the rain and see a tent. Just saying, tent, protect me from the rain doesn't work. You need to actually go into the tent. So protection from the world as we see it ignorantly is the only protection is by going for refuge yourself. You can't just say, refuge, protect me. You have to say, I will go into refuge. I will understand the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha aspects. And that's what protects me, not saying the prayer. There are two kinds of going for refuge. The ordinary, we go for refuge all the time to worldly material things, anything we think that can help us, money, food, friends, our career. These are refuge in a worldly way, but they don't really help us in the long run. Going to work appears to bring you money, but what really brings you money? What really brings us money? Anybody want to?
Being generous?
Say again?
Being generous with other people?
Right, but what's the key to that? It's not only being generous, it's being generous knowing what that's going to do for you with wisdom.
Yeah.
If I give money away, and it's not just money, being generous with your time, being generous in any way will come back to you as generosity. This is just me now. I firmly believe that if you're generous with time, money, tools, love, anything like that will come back as generosity in just about any form. So we have a friend that's faced with, well, how can I describe it? He's a British citizen, so he can't work in the United States. He doesn't have a green card. So he's facing a situation where he was staying is the guy's moving, and so David's not going to be able to stay there anymore. So he can't work. So he's faced with some real issues, homeless issues, basically. So we decided to help him for 6 months. We'll pay for his apartment or wherever he's going to have his rent. Because we know in the future, if we need something like that, by doing it with wisdom, we have the expectation that we'll have that help when we need it in this life or the next. Now, we try to figure out some way to help him that would be the most useful. And we thought that taking care of his room and board for 6 months. And after 6 months, we're not going to stop. We're going to reevaluate how we can help him at that point. So yes, it's going to cost some money. But that's a kind of generosity. And we didn't say we'll cover this much. We're saying we're doing an act of faith. We're saying, David, you tell us what we need to do and we'll pay for it. Now he may go and rent something extraordinary. We don't think so, but that's immaterial. We've made the decision to help him with his living, with his rent for his apartment, period. So that's the power. We could say, oh, here's $300 or $500 or whatever. But that to me, it would be the generosity without wisdom. The act of faith is the powerful part of this. Okay. So the how and the why. We talked about that a little bit with my Parkinson's. But I challenge you over the next, the weekend. In fact, I need to write this down. Okay. I don't assign homework very often, but what I'd like you to do, I'd like you to come up with a how and the instance of how and why in your life. So something happened. So mine's Parkinson's. How did I get Parkinson's? Because I played with organic chemicals. Why I got Parkinson's? The most important part of it is the why. Because I inconvenienced people in the past. So come up with a how and a why combination for something that's happened recently for you and see if you can come up with it. And I'm going to ask that next Monday. I'll ask each of you to give me an example of how and why. I need to write that down so I don't forget. Okay. How you earn money is by working. Why you earn money is due to past generosity. So don't quit your job unless you know you have past generosity in your karmic pocket. So that's ordinary refuge. Exceptional refuge is Buddhist refuge, going to refuge in the three jewels, having the fear of samsara in our future and going for protection with certainty that the three jewels will help us. So when I say the refuge prayer, I go for refuge to the Buddha, compassion, knowledge, and strength, the Dharma, the enlightened side of truth, and the Sangha, the community of realized beings. That just reminds me of what I'm really going for refuge in. The Buddha, compassion, knowledge, and strength, the Dharma, the enlightened side of truth, and the Sangha, the community of realized beings. Now, realized usually refers to having seen emptiness directly. I expand that definition for myself. That realized means those people I know that understand karma and emptiness and are trying to live their lives according to karma and emptiness. That to me is another way of looking at beings as realized. But that's just me. The term realized being refers to someone who's seeing emptiness directly. Okay. Now, there are 5 divisions of exceptional refuge, and we're going to go through all 5 now. There's a lesser scope. The lesser scope is the minimum motivation you have for being a Buddhist. You want to avoid the 3 lower rebirths, which are the hell realms, craving spirits or pretzes, hungry ghosts, you may have heard, and the animal realm. We can't see the hell realms and the craving spirits realm, but that doesn't mean they don't exist. I can't see in ultraviolet. I can't see in infrared, but that doesn't mean the animals can't see, or that those wavelengths don't exist. Radio waves. I can't see radio waves. I can't see the waves that are bringing you to me and me to you, but obviously they exist, or what we're doing now couldn't happen. So the fact I can't see the hell realms as described in Buddhist literature doesn't mean they don't exist. Dante's Inferno painting is reputed to be a decent depiction of the hell realms. We can imagine they exist because of our knowledge of how karma and emptiness works. Knowing this, the lesser scope practitioners work on keeping the 10 virtuous deeds. So the 10 non-virtues, killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, lying, divisive talk, harsh words, useless talk, craving, ill will, and wrong views. So a lesser scope person would refrain from killing, refrain from stealing anything of value, refrain from sexual misconduct, refrain from lying, divisive talk, harsh words, useless talk, craving, ill will, wrong views. Killing's obvious. You just don't kill things. Stealing refers to stealing anything of value. So what's the value? Something valuable to me might not be valuable to you. I was permitted when I worked at the university, we could take pens and pencils and pads of paper home. That was considered to be part of our job, but we weren't supposed to take reams of paper and boxes of pencils and pens. So taking anything of value, you just have to put that in perspective. Stealing is also taking that which is not given. So what's a good example of how could I explain taking that which is not given? Oh boy. Well, you catch yourself saying, well, they'll never miss this, or they'll let me do this. If you don't have permission, don't do it. It's just really that simple. You go to a friend's house. So Mike's going to see friends this weekend. He goes into their apartment and no one's there. He opens the refrigerator and sees some orange juice that he wants. So he says, well, they'll never miss it. They're my good friends. So I'll just go ahead and have some orange juice. Now that seems trivial, but if in the past they've said, hey, Mike, anything in the refrigerator is yours, then fine. But if they haven't, you really shouldn't take it. It seems trivial, it seems so tiny, it seems unimportant. But the problem is he'd probably drink it straight out of the bottle. But see, these examples seem so trivial, but it's a movement of the mind. And movement of the mind is the definition of karma. Movement of the mind and the actions it leads to in thought or words, thought or action. And little things keep growing. What's a better example for me? My lovely wife. What's a good example? Oh, So she bought some yogurts and there for me to snack on. I didn't know that when she bought them. I thought they were for both of us. So rather than take the mango flavored one, I asked her if she wanted it. And she said, no, it was for me. Now I could have just taken it. And then she said, well, that's the one I got for me. And I'd have to apologize for thinking it was for me. Instead, I asked, so I got permission in a sense that I could take it. Now, how big and important is that? Well, I tell you, the secret to 46 years of marriage is little things like that. It's not that it wasn't stealing if I took it. It was being inconsiderate. And inconsiderate to me is another form of stealing. So you want to look at what you do all the time from a standpoint of wisdom, karma, and emptiness all the time. So taking a mango flavored yogurt, big deal. Well, I submit that it is a big deal. It's the low level stuff that we do that comes back stronger in the future. And if I want to have stuff that I enjoy in my future, I need to make sure I don't take someone else's. So, okay, what's next? Oh, that was stealing. Sexual misconduct refers to honoring others' commitments, committed relationships, lying, that's pretty obvious. We have, at least in my country, we have something called a white lie. And that's a lie that's intended, but has good intentions. But a lie is a lie. A mistruth is a mistruth. So catch yourself when you say something. For instance, I had maybe somewhere between 70 and 80 students for last weekend's death meditation. I don't know the exact number. So if I was to say I had 90 students and I don't know the exact number, that would be defined by some people as a white lie. Not an important lie, but it's still a mistruth. So to me, that's a lie. And so that's why I say I had somewhere between 70 and 80 people. I'm not giving you the impression I had 70 to 80 people. I'm saying I had somewhere in that neighborhood. So again, is that an important mistruth? It's important because it is a mistruth. And that's a karma, and that's a karma that's going to grow and ripen in my future. Divisive talk, that mainly refers to showing discontent between people. That's like gossip. Harsh words. You stay away from harsh words. Harsh words to me means profanity. There used to be I don't know if he's still alive, but talk show host, comedian named Dick Cavett. And I used to go home from high school. This is how warped I am. I go home from high school and listen to his talk show for an hour after school because he is so articulate. And one time I was listening to him and he said that profanity is a sign of a poor vocabulary. And I really took that to heart. There are some times when profanity is exactly what you need in the situation, but that's rare. I prefer to try and use my vocabulary. Harsh words, useless talk, gossip. I'm retired, so I don't have a lot of people to talk to and just pass the time. There's nothing wrong with talking about sports or politics, but don't make it the main event of the day. Craving usually refers to what you would do to get what you want. And that usually is not a good thing. You'll do anything to get what you want. Ill will, thinking poorly of others, wrong views, not believing in past and future lives. So a lesser scope person takes these 10 and tries to live their life according to them, which I do. I consider myself to be greater scope, a Mahayana person, but just because you're medium or greater scope doesn't mean you don't keep the 10 virtuous deeds. It means you build on that. Medium scope, their refuge is motivation to escape rebirth in samsara. They understand that nothing we take comfort in lasts. They all eventually cause suffering. They have the small scope and medium scope motivation. So often it is said this scope is that which is shared by the other two. No, I'm sorry, I'm skipped ahead to greater scope. Medium scope uses the teachings of the wheel of life as their motivation, their guideline. So they keep the 10 virtuous deeds. They also apply the teachings of the wheel of life. And then the greater scope does all of that with the motivation to free all living beings from their suffering. So you can see it builds. Greater scope builds on the medium scope builds on the lesser scope. It's a matter of capacity. We have the greater vehicle and the lesser vehicle. When we talk about the greater vehicle and lesser vehicle, we mean the vehicle has a capacity to only hold so much. So the lesser vehicle holds a certain amount, the greater vehicle holds even more. So those are the first of the 5 levels. The fourth is going for refuge in the result, meaning going for refuge in one's own future Buddhahood. This is not when you become a monk or nun or a layperson, but your own direct perception of emptiness, your own cessations and realizations, and your own future total enlightenment. So by going to refuge in those first 3, we're really going for refuge in what were our goal, which is Buddhahood. The 5th level is going for refuge in the cause, for protection to a being other than oneself who has already achieved one or more of the 3 jewels. The refuge in the result means we're going for refuge in that which is going to get us to have the direct perception of emptiness. Refuge in the cause means we're going for refuge knowing refuge in the result means we're going to eventually reach Buddhahood, our goal. Refuge in the cause is refuge in how to get there. Going for protection in the 3 jewels, because if we understand the 3 jewels, if we understand karma and emptiness and wisdom, we can reach our goal of Buddhahood. So again, why are we taking refuge? In the short term, this life, there is no better protection, because going for refuge means understanding karma and emptiness. That's our bottom line. If we understand karma and emptiness, if we apply it to our reactions throughout life, this life, then we're setting the seeds for our future lives and reaching total enlightenment. the key comes back to karma and emptiness and karma. But there's another key, and this is the one that I think it's easiest to perhaps forget. And putting karma and emptiness into practice by serving others is a very important tool. If you study karma and emptiness, but you don't serve others, you're missing them. It's like the two sides of the coin we talk about with karma and emptiness. I would say if you don't put into practice by serving others, then you're missing the point. What's going to get you totally enlightened is serving others, helping others in the way you want to be helped. Okay, so that's refuge, why we're going for refuge, how we go for refuge. But the last part of the class is discussing the 8 qualities of a Buddha. And these are a little esoteric, but we're going to go through them. Number 1, the Buddha is uncaused. So what do we mean by that? It's uncaused. The Dharmakaya is uncaused. It's the emptiness of the Buddha's own nature. The emptiness of omniscience is uncaused. It's because of this emptiness that any sentient being can become a Buddha. So basically, we're talking about the emptiness of a Buddha, the potential to become a Buddha. It's important when you think of the word emptiness that you don't think of it being not there. That's why I don't like the term emptiness. I like the term potential, but that's not perfect either. A Buddha is spontaneous. Think of the moon shining in the sky. Anywhere it is shining, that there's some still water, the moon will spontaneously reflect in that water. No effort is necessary by the water or the moon. The water is like any living being who is ready to meet the Buddha, and the moon is the Buddha spontaneously, effortlessly appearing to that being. Taking this further, it is the person on the bus who steps on your foot, the tree your car hits, the doctor who diagnoses your blood clots, all day long, appearing to us to give whatever you need to help you on your path. So the Buddha is spontaneous, they're everywhere. Now, is there an actual Buddha in my room right now? I can't see him, doesn't mean he or she's not there. For me, they're there because I'm thinking of what I need to do in order to reach my goals. So they're spontaneous in that they're everywhere. They're all pervasive. How do you know any of the things in your life are not an emanation? I don't. I don't know that. Number 3, Buddha is realized in no other way, meaning that the Dharmakaya cannot be perceived conceptually. It is the absence of omniscient nature that comes from its own side. So we can achieve it as well. So Buddha is realized in no other way without, if you want to understand this quality of the Buddha, it has to do with their being empty of any self-existence. They come from our perception, our karma ripening. The knowledge quality of the Buddha, the Buddha's awareness of our suffering. The love quality of the Buddha, their love for us is that he wants to help us. He or she wants to help us. It's important. They want to help us. They can't do any of this for us. If they could, they would have, and they haven't. So it's not that they don't want to, it's that they can't, because they can't take on my karma. They can teach me how to do what I need to do to become enlightened. but it's my responsibility. That's what I love about Buddhism. It's my responsibility. Yes, it's the responsibility of the teachers I have to teach me and make sure I stay learning Buddhism. But I have the responsibility of finding those teachers and going to those teachers. Number 6, the power. They can't sprinkle magic dust on us or transfer their consciousness to us, but they can teach us how. This power comes from having done it themselves. Number 7, he or she fulfills their own needs. Number 8, they fulfill the needs of others. So how does he fulfill the needs? I'm still suffering from Parkinson's. I have bills to pay. I get ill. I have to worry about blood clots. He fulfills the needs of others means that he or she, the Buddha, is totally available and capable of teaching us how to stop our own suffering. My need is to know how to do that. Buddhas and the Dharma fulfill that need by showing me how to, telling me how to do it. Again, it's my responsibility. So let's do that one more time. The 8 qualities of the Buddha, they're uncaused. This is referring to the Dharmakaya, the emptiness of the omniscience of the Buddha, spontaneous. They're everywhere and anywhere. They're not just on our altar. They're not just in the pictures. They're not just in the written word. He's realized to know, he or she is realized to no other way. That one's a little confusing to me. Knowledge, Buddha's awareness of our suffering. Their love, the quality of love, they love us. Their love for us is that they want to help us. So love is making people happy. Compassion is taking away their suffering. Love in this case is he wants to help us learn how to be truly happy by understanding karma and emptiness, by understanding the how and the why, by understanding the past is our present, the present is our future. All those sayings only make sense if you understand they have love for us, and that's how they're helping us. The power comes from having, well, let's say, Geshe Michael's seen emptiness directly. The power of that for me is that he did it, and so the potential is that I can do it as well. Number 7, Buddhas fulfill their own needs. He has no, so they have no more suffering. His projections are all, their projections are all of paradise. His body is no longer that of, their body is no longer that of a human, it's rainbow light body. Number 8, they fulfill the needs of others. They don't take away my pain. They don't take away my suffering. They're teaching me how to do that. It's really an incredible gift. When you hear someone say, what kind of God permits Ukraine, Yemen, Somalia, those terrible floods that are hitting Florida, the fires in Maui and Australia and Canada, that's all coming. It makes so much more sense for me to make that be coming from my past misdeeds than there's some omnipotent God who's decided it's time to burn down most of the island of Hawaii to teach us a lesson. That just makes no sense to me. That's not the kind of God I want to be involved. But if it's my fault, if it's coming from my past misdeeds, that makes more sense. That makes it my responsibility. And I like that, because even if I can't, my responsibility isn't strong enough to become enlightened in this lifetime. I understand my responsibility to purport myself in a way that will make my future lives pleasant. It's no one else's fault but my own for the success or the failure. Now, I'm pretty wrapped up in my taking care of my health. Well, maybe not obviously, but I'm concerned about my wife's health. And I'm concerned for two reasons. One, I depend on her to help me when I have problems with my Parkinson. And two, I don't want to see her suffer. So I need to be aware of how I can help her with wisdom so that I get the help in the future. And if I help her with wisdom, she gets the help that she needs in the future by taking care of me with wisdom. So we feed off of each other that way. And that's what's going to make the rest of this life as pleasant as possible. So that's why we take refuge. I think the refuge commitments, well, we haven't talked about those. We'll talk about those soon. But it's important. I think the most important thing to me about taking refuge back when I did it years ago was that finally, how can I say this? It took a load off my shoulders. Instead of looking for someone to blame for the problems in my life, specifically losing my lovely wife's parents, instead of looking for someone to blame, it made much more sense that it was my fault. And I don't enjoy having had the karma to have them pass away. 1987, I think it was 1987. I'm very sad that I had that karma, but it's because of my karma they're gone. It's my fault. I don't think of it in a guilty way. I really don't. Once I understood karma and emptiness, I thought, well, my karma ripened for them to be gone. It came from deeds I did in the past. I have no control over those deeds, but I can certainly not do any more of those kind of deeds to have loved ones in my life pass away. So will that work all the time? I've had friends die in the not distant past. So the people that don't understand Buddhism will say, well, that's working really well. You had this guy die. Well, they don't understand how karma and emptiness works. So the fact that someone close to me died a couple of days ago has everything to do with my past actions and not my present. I don't know why that's so comforting to me, but it is. When you get to be 70, people start to pass away on you. That's the only trouble of living in a retirement community where most of the people are 65, 70, 80 years old. They tend to start dropping away. Okay. That's pretty much what I've got for today. So your assignment again, where did I put that piece of paper? Here it is. Your assignment is to come up with an example of how and why. This isn't a big challenge. Don't get upset about it. Don't spend a lot of time on it. But I think if you play the game of how and why, you'll find yourself stopping and thinking, well, how and why? I like it. I like the game. I think the hardest thing with how and why is you look for the big how and why instead of the small stuff. My wife and I came up with this concept of low-level radiation, except we call it low-level radiance. Low-level radiation is all the small things you do that are not correct. They're going to grow. They're a karma that you did. They're going to grow. And low-level radiation can cause cancer and things like that. So the analogy is the small misdeeds we do will grow into big misdeeds. The low-level radiance is the opposite of that. The small good things we do will go into great, large good things. So never pass up the chance of doing a small thing, small good thing, thinking it's not important. Yes, you should always look for the most important karmic object you can work from. But don't forget, I think of it this way. The most important karmic objects in my life at this point are Geshe Michael, another teacher I have, Lama Christie, all of you, my wife. So basically, I'm surrounded by powerful karmic objects. So I need to be constantly trying to do the best I can for all of you because you're powerful karmic objects to me. If I have that mindset, then I'm always going to be looking for any small thing that I can do with wisdom, because I'm doing it towards a powerful karmic object, will be all that more powerful to me when it ripens. You should never, I don't think you should ever think to yourself, well, they're not important. I don't have to do that for them. They're not an important, powerful karmic object. You don't know if they're an emanation of Lord Buddha. You don't know if they're a bodhisattva. Because you don't know any of that, and think that they are and respond accordingly. So that guy who cuts you off in traffic or appears to be an idiot on his cell phone in a car, I look at them as teaching me a lesson, not that they're an idiot in the car. The lesson is I'm thinking they're an idiot in the car. I don't know why they're on their phone. All I can do is not be on my phone and not be inconsiderate if that's what I think they're being. So I guess one thing I'm trying to say is, you go for refuge nominally. I go for refuge to Buddha, Dharma, Sangha until I'm enlightened. You do that 6 times a day, or you can go for refuge throughout the day, going for refuge in your understanding of karma and emptiness. That's, to me, that's what's going to refuge is. If you say you've done I've said this before, you do your morning, I did my practice in the morning. No, you did your morning practice, yes, but you didn't do your practice in the morning, because that implies the rest of the day you're not doing your practice. Well, that's not the kind of Buddhist I'm trying to be. I'm trying to be a Buddhist 24/7, 365. Okay. Let's do our dedication. By the goodness of what we've just done, may all beings complete the collection of merit and wisdom, and thus gain the two ultimate bodies that merit and wisdom make. Okay, if there are any questions, I'll be happy to entertain them now. If not, you've got the homework to do and you've got my assignment to do. Now I've got to make sure to post this so I'll remember to ask. Try and come up with something novel. I'll try and come up with something that doesn't have to do with my book, my lovely wife and ice cream, or my Parkinson. That's going to be hard. When could that's going to be a challenge. I better start working on it now. Okay. Bye-bye, everybody. Have a good weekend. Stay safe. Stay dry if you're in Florida. What's the weather like in Europe and in Moscow now? Hot? Cold? Yeah, sort of. Cornelia, what's it like in Germany?
It's very warm and I have a nice weather. It is sunny. Sorry, my English is not very good. I think Claudia has a question.
Oh, sorry. Hi, Claudia. Go ahead. Turn your microphone on. Microphone. There you go.
Now, yeah. Thank you, Cornelia. I have a question. It's something that came up to my mind while I was walking this morning. Basically, it was like, what I understand is that there is no beginning, no end.
Right.
But when we talk about the teachings in someone becoming enlightened,
Enlightened, yeah.
enlightened. How it is, like, for example, the Buddha it was that, I don't know, like, it was something that starts. Let me think a little bit. I was clear, and then I start talking, and then it's not clear.
Yeah, that's happened to me more than once.
It is that, well, what I understand, the bodhisattvas start just like us. Like, it was like the good ones in the class. That's why they become enlightenment. But there's something that truly we have teachers before, and those teachers before become alignment and things like that. Like, it was a line of people, but nothing starts and ends. How it was, I don't know. It was like, if we don't start and we don't end, in which moment that triggers that we experience something that can help us to go out from this suffering life. I don't know, like.
Oh, there are a couple of things in there that there's beginningless time and endless time. That's been on my back burner for a long time because it's hard to conceive of. But whether there's beginningless or endless time, I'm in a mind stream and in a time now. So I need to react and do things now for my future. I'm trying to understand the concept of beginningless and endless time. But right now, for me, I have no idea. I look at those images of the space telescopes looking back in time. Where's the edge of the universe? there couldn't be, there can't be an end to the edge. There can't be an edge to the universe because there's something on the other side of the edge. So that's just one of those things I don't spend a lot of time thinking about because it gets me confused. But because there's endless time and beginningless time, because of that, it is important what you do in your life. That doesn't stop you, shouldn't stop you from, I'm not saying you're thinking it should stop you. I'm saying the idea of there being beginningless and endless time to me means there's no end in the sense that, well, because there's beginningless and endless time, when I die, David Sumati will stop existing, but my mind stream won't. That's why I'm not worried about dying. I am worried whether I'll go to the hell realms or not. Hopefully I won't. But I'm not worried about not existing anymore because of beginningless and endless time. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's comforting to me.
Yeah, it makes total sense.
Oh, good. I want you all to remember, I don't believe there's ever a stupid question or one you can't ask me. I may not have the answer. I'll go and find the answer if I can, but never feel you can't ask me a question. Now, if you want to ask me how to make $100,000 tomorrow in the stock market, I'll say go give your kids a raise in their allowance and do it with wisdom. Okay. Thank you very much. I always appreciate the ability to teach you. I try and do my best. Some days are better than others. But hang in there. These courses are well worth it. And if you didn't take the last weekend's death meditation course, take this weekend's. I think you'll find it very interesting and help you with how to lead your life, especially if you have kids. Okay. Bye-bye. See you on Monday.